Admiral Quan Deho stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Earth grow larger on the main screen. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from space. Too peaceful. After conquering 847 worlds, Quan knew this feeling well. The calm before another easy victory. "Admiral, we are in position," reported Commander Yuminsiok from his tactical station. "All battle groups ready for assault." Quan nodded. The Velkari Empire had perfected planetary conquest over the past 1,000 years. First, destroy all satellites and communication systems. Second, eliminate military installations. Third, target government centers. Fourth, process the population for relocation. Simple and effective. Time estimate for full conquest? Quan asked. Based on their technology level, 37 hours maximum, Minsiok replied. Their weapons are primitive. Their space defenses are laughable. Captain Lee Soyoung looked up from her station. "Sir, our scouts report the humans have no energy. Shields, no plasma weapons, and their fastest ships barely reach their own moon. This should be our easiest conquest yet." Quan allowed himself a small smile. The High Command had chosen his fleet for this mission because of their speed record. They could conquer a world faster than any other Velkari force. Earth would be no different. "Begin the operation," Quan ordered. The first phase went exactly as planned. Lieutenant Park Hyenwoo led the satellite destruction mission. Within 2 hours, every human satellite was floating debris. Earth's communication networks went dark. Their GPS systems failed. Their weather monitoring stopped working. All orbital targets eliminated, Hyenwoo reported. 8. The humans are blind and deaf. Phase 2 took slightly longer than expected, but only because Earth had more military bases than their intelligence suggested. Captain Lee Soyoung's atmospheric fighters swept across continents, destroying air bases, naval yards, and missile sites. The humans tried to fight back, but their jets moved like insects compared to Velkar ships. "Military resistance neutralized," Soyoung announced after 4 hours. "Some scattered ground forces remain, but they pose no threat." By hour 6, Commander Yuminsiok's ground forces had captured every major government building on the planet. Presidents, prime ministers, and kings were all in Velkari custody. The human leadership had surrendered faster than any species in Velkari history. Political structure collapsed, Minsiok reported. No organized resistance remains. Quan felt satisfied. Everything was proceeding ahead of schedule. They would finish this conquest in less than 24 hours, not the estimated 30. The High Command would be pleased. "Begin Phase 4, Quan ordered. "Start population processing." This was when Lieutenant Park Hyenwoo made his discovery. Hyenwoo had been assigned to catalog human data systems before they were erased. Standard procedure required preserving any useful technology or scientific knowledge before cultural cleansing began. He expected to find basic mathematics, simple chemistry, maybe some primitive physics. Instead, he found something impossible. Admiral Hyenwoo called from his workstation, his voice confused. "I need you to see this." Quan walked over to the data analysis station. "What is it, Lieutenant?" "Sir, the humans have been recording everything. Not just important things. Everything." Hyenwoo pulled up file after file on his screen. "Look at this. They have detailed records going back millions of years. Millions." Quan frowned. "Their civilization is only a few thousand years old." "That is what I thought too, sir. But they have documented the entire history of their planet. Every animal that ever lived. Every plant that ever grew. Every geological change that ever happened." Hyenwoo scrolled through endless databases. They even have records of creatures that died out long before their species existed. Quan stared at the screen. No species in the galaxy kept records like this. Most civilizations barely documented their own achievements. The Velkari themselves only preserved military victories and technological advances. "Show me more," Quan said. Hyenwoo opened another database. "They call these museums, sir. Buildings where they store old things. Look at this one in a place called London. They have objects from every period of human history. Coins, tools, weapons, art, clothes, furniture. Some items are thousands of years old. Why would they keep old tools?" Quan asked. "Old tools are useless. I do not know, sir. But they have thousands of these museums, each one full of old things. Hyan-Wu pulled up more files. And look at this. They have libraries filled with millions of books. Stories, histories, scientific studies, personal diaries. They save everything anyone ever wrote down. Commander Yu Minseok joined them at the station. Lieutenant, are you saying humans collect garbage? Not garbage, sir. Knowledge? They treat all information as valuable. Hyan-Wu opened another file. This database contains the complete genetic sequence of every living thing on their planet. Plants, animals, bacteria, viruses, everything. Captain Lee Soyoung appeared behind them. That is impossible. Cataloging every genetic sequence would take centuries. They did it anyway, Hyan-Wu said. And sir, that is not all. They have recorded the behavior patterns of thousands of animal species. How they hunt, how they mate, how they raise their young, how they communicate. The humans studied other creatures as carefully as they studied themselves. Quan felt a strange sensation he had never experienced during a conquest. Curiosity. Lieutenant, how much data are we talking about? Hyan-Wu checked his scanner. Based on initial estimates, sir, the humans have accumulated more information than the rest of the galaxy combined. The bridge fell silent. Every Valkyrie stared at the data displays showing endless human archives. Databases within databases. Files within files. Knowledge preserved in formats they had never seen before. Admiral, came a voice from the communication station. Priority message from High Command. Quan walked to the COM station and accepted the transmission. The image of Supreme Admiral Cho Byung-han appeared on the screen. Admiral Quan, what is your status? Military conquest complete, sir. Beginning population processing now. Excellent. However, our intelligence division has detected unusual data signatures from Earth. Large quantities of organized information. You are ordered to secure all human knowledge before proceeding with standard cleansing protocols. Understood, sir. How much time do we have? Not take as long as necessary. Nothing must be lost. This is now your primary mission. The transmission ended. Quan looked around his bridge at the confused faces of his officers. They had come to conquer a planet in 37 hours. Now they were being ordered to study everything the humans had ever learned. Cancel population processing, Quan ordered. All units are now assigned to data preservation. I want every human archive copied and analyzed. Sir, Commander, Yu Minseok asked, how long will this take? Quan looked at the endless scroll of human databases on Lieutenant Park Hyan-Wu's screen. The humans had been collecting knowledge for thousands of years. They had documented everything they had ever encountered. They had preserved information that most species would consider worthless. I have no idea, Quan admitted. The quick conquest of Earth was over. Something much more complicated was about to begin. Dr. Kim Taemin had performed cultural assessments on dozens of conquered worlds. The process was always the same. Spend 2 weeks cataloging the species' major achievements, record their basic history, and file a report. Simple work that required little thought. Earth was supposed to be no different. Begin standard assessment protocol, Dr. Kim told his team as they landed in what humans called New York City. We should be finished by next week. Specialist Choi Yoon-ji set up her scanning equipment in a large building humans called the Metropolitan Museum, sir. This structure contains more artifacts than most entire planets. Dr. Kim walked through the building's halls, expecting to see the usual collection of primitive tools and crude artwork. Instead, he found something that made no sense. The humans had organized their history by time periods, but the periods went back millions of years. Choi, look at this display, Dr. Kim called. They have bones from creatures that lived 65 million years ago. Choi ran her scanner over the massive skeleton. Sir, these are real, not reproductions. They actually dug these bones out of the ground and put them here for people to look at. Why would they display bones from dead animals? I do not know, sir, but there are hundreds of these skeletons, all from different time periods. Choi pointed to information plaques written in human languages. According to this, they call these creatures dinosaurs. The humans studied them, even though they died out long before humans existed. Dr. Kim felt confused. Every species in the galaxy focused on their own achievements. Why would humans waste time studying creatures they had never met? Keep scanning, he ordered. There must be a logical explanation. 3 hours later, Choi made another discovery that deepened the mystery. Sir, the humans did not just keep old bones. They recreated entire environments from the past. She led Dr. Kim to a hall filled with dioramas showing ancient landscapes, prehistoric forests with strange plants, ancient oceans with unusual fish, desert scenes with creatures that looked nothing like modern animals. They built models of worlds that no longer exist, Choi said. Perfect copies of places they never saw. How could they know what these places looked like? They figured it out from evidence, sir. Fossilized plants, soil samples, rock formations. They studied tiny clues and rebuilt entire ecosystems. Choi showed him detailed charts on the walls. Look at this. They mapped how Earth's climate changed over millions of years. They know exactly when ice ages happened and why. Dr. Kim stared at the climate charts. The Valkyrie barely understood their own planet's weather patterns. These humans had decoded millions of years of planetary history using nothing but rocks and dirt, Commander. Bae-jin-ho contacted them through their communication devices. Dr. Kim, report to the Natural History Museum immediately. We found something you need to see. The Natural History Museum was even more overwhelming than the Metropolitan. Commander Bae met them at the entrance, his expression troubled. Doctor, how long do human civilizations usually last? Bae asked. Based on their technology level, probably 5 to 10,000 years maximum, Dr. Kim replied. Then explain this. Bae led them to a vast hall filled with displays about human evolution. They have traced their own development back 7 million years. They know exactly how their species changed over time. The displays showed skulls arranged chronologically, each slightly different from the last. Charts explained how human brains grew larger, how their bodies adapted for walking upright, how their tools became more sophisticated. They documented their own evolution, Dr. Kim asked. Not just documented. They found the actual bones of their ancestors and figured out how they lived. Bae pointed to a diorama showing early humans around a fire. They know what their ancestors ate, what tools they used, even how they communicated. Specialist Choi was studying another display. Sir, this gets stranger. They have exhibits about civilizations that disappeared thousands of years ago. Egyptians, Romans, Maya, Aztecs. They studied dead human cultures as carefully as they studied dead animals. Dr. Kim walked through exhibit after exhibit, each more confusing than the last. The humans had preserved languages that no one spoke anymore. They had reconstructed cities that had been ruins for centuries. They had decoded writing systems from civilizations that had been forgotten for thousands of years. Why would they study their own failures? Dr. Kim wondered aloud. Perhaps they learned from them, Choi suggested. The team spent the next several days visiting more museums. Each one revealed new aspects of human knowledge preservation. Art museums contained paintings from every period of human history. Science museums explained discoveries made over centuries. History museums displayed objects from cultures across their entire planet. But the most shocking discovery came when they visited the Library of Congress. Sir Choi said, scanning the building. With her equipment, this structure contains over 17 million books. 17 million. Dr. Kim could barely comprehend the number. What could possibly require 17 million books? They walked through endless halls lined with shelves. Books about science, history, art, religion, philosophy, literature. Books in hundreds of different languages. Books about subjects Dr. Kim had never heard of. They wrote books about everything, Choi observed. How to cook food, how to grow plants, how to build houses, how to raise children, how to make music, how to paint pictures. Dr. Kim pulled a book from a shelf at random. It was about the history of buttons. Buttons. Someone had written an entire book about small fasteners used on clothing. This is madness, he said. Why would anyone write a book about buttons? Sir, look at this section, Choi called from another aisle. Biographies. They wrote books about individual people's lives. Thousands of them. Dr. Kim joined her. The biography section stretched as far as he could see. Books about kings and presidents, but also books about farmers, teachers, soldiers, artists, inventors, explorers. The humans had recorded the life stories of people most civilizations would consider unimportant. They preserved the memories of ordinary individuals, Dr. Kim asked. Not just preserved. They studied them, analyzed them, learned from them. Choi showed him academic papers about historical figures. They treated each life as a source of knowledge. Dr. Kim's communication device beeped. Admiral Kwan's voice came through clearly. Dr. Kim, status report. Admiral, we need more time. How much more time? Dr. Kim looked around the library, then thought about all the other libraries, museums, and archives they had discovered across the planet. Each human city seemed to have dozens of knowledge preservation facilities. I cannot estimate, sir. The humans appear to have documented everything they ever encountered. Every animal, every plant, every rock formation, every weather pattern, every historical event, every individual person, every idea anyone ever had. There was a long pause before Admiral Kwan responded. Doctor, are you telling me the humans recorded their entire planetary experience? Yes, sir. And they organized it all. They created systems to catalog, cross-reference, and study everything. They built institutions dedicated to preserving knowledge for future generations. Another pause. Continue your assessment, Doctor. The High Command wants a complete report. Dr. Kim ended the communication and looked at Specialist Choi. We're going to need a much larger team. How much larger, sir? Dr. Kim thought about the 17 million books surrounding them, countless museums they had yet to visit, and the databases Lieutenant Park Hyun-woo had discovered containing digital records of human knowledge. All of them, he said. We're going to need everyone. 6 months had passed since the conquest began. Dr. Shin Dong-hyuk stared at his progress report and felt something he had never experienced before. Despair. His team had been working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. They had cataloged thousands of human databases, visited hundreds of museums, and scanned millions of documents. Yet somehow, they seemed further from completion than when they started. Dr. Shin called his assistant. We found another archive. Where this time? Dr. Shin asked warily. Underground, beneath a building called the Vatican? The humans have been storing documents there for over 1,000 years. Dr. Shin rubbed his tired eyes. Every time they thought they had found all the human knowledge repositories, another one appeared. Libraries hidden in monasteries. Archives buried in government buildings. Collections stored in private homes. How many documents? He asked. Initial scan shows approximately 12 million items. Books, scrolls, letters, artwork, maps, scientific papers. 12 million more items. Dr. Shin added this number to his running total. The humans had preserved over 2 billion individual pieces of information, and his team had barely examined 1% of them. Lieutenant Colonel Han Yujin approached his workstation. Doctor, I need to show you something disturbing. More disturbing than infinite human archives? Much more. Han led him to a computer terminal displaying human historical records. We have been assuming that humans documented events once from one perspective. We were wrong. Han pulled up records about something humans called World War II. The screen filled with thousands of files. One event, Doctor? One war that lasted 6 years? Look how many different accounts they preserved. Dr. Shin scrolled through the files. Official military reports from dozens of countries, personal diaries from soldiers, civilians, and political leaders, newspaper articles written during the war, academic studies written years later, interviews with survivors, photographs, films, and audio recordings. They recorded the same events from every possible viewpoint, Han explained. Military leaders, common soldiers, enemy combatants, neutral observers, people who lived through it, scholars who studied it later. They preserved contradictory accounts of the same battles. Why would they keep contradictory information? asked our human liaison. She said they wanted to understand truth from all angles. Han opened more files. Look at this.
They have
personal letters from people on both sides of the war. They preserved the thoughts of their enemies alongside their own heroes. Dr. Shin felt overwhelmed. Most species recorded their victories and forgot their defeats. These humans had documented everything, even the perspectives of people they had fought against. There is more, Han continued. They did this for every major event in their history. Multiple viewpoints, preserved forever. Dr. Shin thought about the implications. If humans recorded every event from multiple perspectives, then studying their history was not just complex, it was exponentially complex. His communication device buzzed. Fleet psychologist Ro Subin requested an emergency meeting. Dr. Shin found Ro in the medical bay, treating Valkyrie soldiers who looked exhausted and confused. "Doctor, we have a problem," Ro said. "My patients are suffering from what I can only call knowledge anxiety." Knowledge anxiety? Fear that they are missing something important. Look at Corporal Min here.
Ass.
He was assigned to catalog human music. You know how many songs humans have created? Dr. Shin shook his head. Over 50 million recorded songs, in thousands of different styles, from hundreds of different cultures. Ro showed him the soldiers. Report. Corporal Min has been listening to human music for 4 months. He has heard less than 0.1% of their musical output, and this causes anxiety. He is terrified he will miss something crucial. He barely sleeps. He barely eats. He just listens to song after song, afraid to skip any of them. Ro pulled up more medical files. I have 27 similar cases. Soldiers assigned to different aspects of human knowledge, all suffering from the same fear. Dr. Shin looked at the medical reports. Specialists studying human literature had read over 10,000 books, but knew millions more existed. Researchers examining human scientific papers had reviewed thousands of studies, but discovered new fields of research every day. Analysts cataloging human languages had learned 12 different tongues, but found evidence of hundreds more. They are becoming obsessed, Ro continued. The humans' comprehensive approach to documentation is infectious. Our people are starting to believe that incomplete knowledge is worthless knowledge. Is it not? Dr. Shin asked, then realized what he had said. He was developing the same obsession. Ro nodded grimly. The humans have taught us to fear missing details. In Valkyrie culture, we preserve the important things and discard the rest. But humans treat everything as potentially important. Dr. Shin understood the problem now. His team was not just cataloging human knowledge, they were adopting human attitudes toward knowledge. The idea of leaving anything unstudied felt wrong, even dangerous. Show me the worst case, Dr. Shin requested. Ro led him to a private room, where Major Seo Kongmin sat surrounded by tablets displaying human scientific papers. Major, how's your biological research progressing? Dr. Shin asked. Seo looked up with bloodshot eyes. Doctor, the humans have identified and studied over 8 million different species of life on their planet. 8 million. Genetics, behavior, diet, reproduction methods, and ecological role of each one. That seems comprehensive. But that is not all. Seo's voice became frantic. They have also studied extinct species. Millions of creatures that no longer exist. They reconstructed entire evolutionary trees, showing how all life on their planet developed over billions of years. Seo pulled up charts and diagrams that filled multiple screens. Look at this. They traced the evolution of every major biological system. How eyes developed, how wings evolved, how brains became more complex. They documented the entire history of life itself. Dr. Shin stared at the evolutionary trees. Each species connected to others through millions of years of development. Every creature's story preserved and studied. Major, you need rest. I cannot. Rest, Seo said. Every species might hold the key to understanding biological adaptation. If I skip studying even one creature, I might miss something that could benefit the Empire. How long would it take to study every species? At my current pace? Several hundred years. But new discoveries are being made constantly, human scientists are still finding new species faster than I can catalog the ones they already found. Dr. Shin left the medical bay feeling deeply troubled. He returned to his own workstation and stared at his progress reports. His team was trapped in an endless cycle. The more they learned about human knowledge preservation, the more they realized how much they did not know. He opened a communication. Channel 2, Admiral Kwan. Admiral Dr. Shin reporting. Doctor, what is your status, sir? We have a problem. Human documentation is not just comprehensive, it is exponentially comprehensive. They have recorded the same information from multiple perspectives, preserved contradictory accounts, and documented subjects at levels of detail that seem infinite. Explain they did not just preserve their history, sir. Preserved every viewpoint of their history. They did not just study life on their planet, they studied every individual species that ever existed. They did not just create music. They created millions of songs in thousands of styles and preserved them all. There was a long pause. Doctor, are you telling me that completing our mission is impossible? Dr. Shin looked around at his exhausted team, at the endless digital archives, at the reports showing billions of individual pieces of human knowledge. Sir, I am telling you that the humans have made themselves impossible to fully understand. And somehow, that impossibility is making us want to understand them even more. 2 years after the invasion, Admiral Kwan Daeho faced an impossible situation. His conquest fleet had become something that had never existed before in Velkara history, a permanent research mission. The High Command sent daily messages demanding progress reports. Each report was the same. More discoveries, more complexity, more time needed. Admiral Captain Nam Jae-hyun called from the linguistic station. We have completed analysis of 50 human languages. Excellent. How many remain? 6,950. Admiral Kwan closed his eyes. When Captain Nam had started this assignment, they thought humans spoke maybe 20 languages. The discovery of 7,000 different tongues had been shocking enough. But then came the bigger shock. Sir Nam continued. Each language contains unique ways of thinking. The humans who spoke different languages actually thought differently about the same concepts. Explain. Some human languages have 50 different words for snow. Others have no word for blue and green. They see them as the same color. Some languages count differently. Some organize time differently. Nam pulled up examples on his screen. Each language reveals different aspects of human cognitive ability. Admiral Kwan understood the problem. They could not simply skip languages. Each one might contain insights into human psychology that the others did not reveal. How long to? Analyze all 7,000 languages? At our current pace, approximately 80 years? But sir, that assumes we only study the languages themselves. We also need to study the literature, songs, poems, and oral traditions preserved in each language. 80 years. Admiral Kwan had expected to spend 80 hours on this planet. Not 80 years. Dr. Lim Haiwan approached with her cultural analysis. Team. Her expression showed the same exhaustion that had become common among all his officers. Admiral, we need to discuss human entertainment. Entertainment. Stories they created for pleasure. Movies, books, television shows, video games. Dr. Lim showed him data tablets filled with human media. We initially ignored these, thinking they were unimportant. They are unimportant. Focus on factual information. That is what we thought. Sir, but our analysis shows that human fictional stories reveal psychological patterns that their factual histories hide. Dr. Lim opened a file showing statistical charts. Their entertainment media shows how they really think about conflict, relationships, morality, and social problems. Admiral Kwan looked at the charts. Human entertainment patterns revealed fears, hopes, and values that official documents never mentioned. For example, Dr. Lim continued, their movies about alien invasion show exactly how they expect other species to behave. Their stories about artificial intelligence reveal their attitudes toward non-biological thinking. Their romantic comedies demonstrate their social bonding patterns. How much entertainment media did they create? Millions of movies, millions of books, hundreds of millions of songs, billions of hours of television, trillions of digital videos. Dr. Lim paused, and new content was being created every day until we arrived. Admiral Kwan felt the familiar sensation of drowning in human information. Dr. Lim, are you telling me we need to watch every human movie? Yes, sir. Each piece of media contains data about human psychology that we cannot get anywhere else. Major SCO Kongmin joined the group, carrying biological samples and looking more frantic than ever. Admiral, the biological situation has become critical. Critical how? The humans documented not just species that currently exist, but every species that ever existed on their planet. They found fossils, analyzed DNA from ancient samples, and reconstructed the biology of creatures that died millions of years ago. Major SEO showed him evolutionary charts that covered entire walls. But that is not the worst part. What is the worst part? They also studied how each species connected to every other species. They mapped entire ecosystems and showed how the disappearance of one creature affected all the others. Major SEO pulled up ecological networks that look like spider webs. Every species on Earth influences every other species. To understand any one creature, we need to understand all creatures. Admiral Kwan stared at the ecological webs. Lines connected thousands of species in complex relationships. Hereditors, prey, competitors, partners, parasites, and symbionts. Each creature existed within a network of biological relationships. Major, how many ecological relationships exist on Earth? Billions, sir. Every plant, animal, fungus, and microorganism has relationships with dozens or hundreds of other organisms. The humans mapped all of these relationships and studied how they changed over time. Time to complete this analysis? Unknown, sir. Biological complexity appears to be essentially infinite. Admiral Kwan's communication device signaled an urgent message from the High Command. Supreme Admiral Cho Byung-hun appeared on the screen looking displeased. Admiral Kwan, your progress reports have become concerning. 2 years for a simple knowledge catalog. Sir, the situation is more complex than anticipated. Explain. The humans have documented their planet's entire existence. Not just their own history, but the history of everything that ever lived or happened on their world. They preserved multiple perspectives on every event, studied every biological relationship, and created millions of artistic works that reveal psychological patterns. Supreme Admiral Cho frowned. Admiral, are you telling me that humans are too complicated to understand? Sir, I'm telling you that humans made themselves too valuable to ignore. Every piece of their knowledge reveals something useful. Their biological research could help us understand adaptation. Their psychological studies could help us predict behavior. Their historical analysis could help us avoid strategic mistakes. Admiral, you have the largest research fleet in the galaxy. Surely you can complete this task. Admiral Kwan looked around his bridge. Officers studying human languages, scientists analyzing biological relationships, cultural experts watching human movies, psychologists reading human literature. Everyone working frantically, but the mountain of human knowledge seemed to grow larger every day. Sir, the humans appear to have created a knowledge preservation, a system that grows faster than it can be studied. They documented everything they learned, but they also documented the process of learning itself. They preserved not just facts, but methods for finding new facts. What are you saying? They turned their entire civilization into a machine for creating and preserving knowledge. Even while we study them, we are discovering new ways they studied themselves. There was a long pause. Supreme Admiral Cho looked tired. Admiral, the Empire cannot dedicate infinite resources to one planet. Understood, sir. But if we leave now, we will lose access to the most comprehensive knowledge base in the galaxy. The humans have solved scientific problems we are still working on. They have preserved historical examples of every type of social and political situation. They have documented biological adaptations that could revolutionize our understanding of life itself. Another pause. Admiral submitted detailed analysis of potential benefits from continued study. The High Command will make a decision. The communication ended. Admiral Kwan looked at his exhausted officers and realized they faced an impossible choice. Leave Earth and lose access to invaluable knowledge, or stay on Earth and dedicate the the rest of their lives to studying human achievements. Sir, Lieutenant Park Hyun-woo called from his data station. I found something you need to see. What now, Lieutenant? The humans have documents about first contact with alien species, sir. Theoretical papers about how to communicate with non-human intelligence. They prepared for our arrival. Admiral Kwan walked to Hyun-woo's station and stared at the screen. Academic papers about xenobiology, military strategies for defending against alien invasion, cultural protocols for interacting with non-human civilizations. The humans had not just documented their past, they had tried to predict their future. Lieutenant, are you saying the humans knew we would come? Not specifically, sir, but they knew someone would come eventually, and they prepared for it. Admiral Kwan realized the truth. The humans had not just made themselves too interesting to destroy, they'd made themselves indispensable to anyone who wanted to understand the universe. His fleet was trapped, not by human weapons, but by human curiosity. 3 years into what was supposed to be a 37-hour conquest, Intelligence Officer Jung Myung made a discovery that changed everything. She had been studying human academic papers when she found something that made her blood run cold. Admiral Kwan, she called urgently through her communication device. You need to see this immediately. Admiral Kwan arrived at the intelligence center within minutes. Jang showed him a collection of human documents displayed on multiple screens. Sir, look at these paper titles, she said, pointing to academic. Studies written decades before their arrival. Xenoarchaeological protocols for first contact scenarios. Cultural exchange methodologies for interplanetary relations. Preserving human heritage for non-human scholars. Admiral Kwan read the titles slowly. Are you saying the humans wrote instruction manuals for alien researchers? Yes, sir. They literally created guides for extraterrestrial visitors who might want to study their civilization? Jang opened one of the papers. This document, written 40 years ago, explains exactly how to catalog human cultural artifacts. It recommends starting with museums, then moving to libraries, then examining entertainment media. That is exactly what we did, because they told us to, sir. Without realizing it, we followed their instructions perfectly. Admiral Kwan felt a chill of understanding. The humans had anticipated their arrival and prepared for it. Show me more. Jang pulled up dozens of academic papers. Studies about how different species might interpret human behavior, research into universal communication, methods, analyses of what aspects of human culture would be most interesting to non-human intelligence. Sir, they did not just document their civilization randomly. They organized their knowledge specifically to be studied by aliens. Dr. Kwon Seung-ho entered the intelligence center carrying a data tablet. His expression was grim. Admiral, I have been analyzing human preparation for first contact. Situation is worse than we thought. Worse how? The humans created what they called cultural exchange packages, collections of human achievements designed to demonstrate their value to hypothetical alien visitors. Dr. Kwan showed them carefully organized digital archives, music collections featuring the best human compositions, art galleries displaying their greatest masterpieces, scientific papers explaining their most important discoveries. Admiral Kwan examined the cultural packages. Each one was perfectly organized to showcase human capabilities. Music that demonstrated emotional complexity. Art that showed creative thinking. Science that proved analytical ability. They made themselves irresistible to study. Admiral Kwan realized, exactly, sir, but there is more. Dr. Kwan opened another file. They also prepared educational materials about human weaknesses and failures. It's documents explaining their wars, their environmental mistakes, their social problems. Would they advertise their failures? 'Cause they learned from them, sir? Each failure came with detailed analysis of what went wrong and how they fixed the problem. They turned their mistakes into valuable lessons for anyone who might conquer them. Colonel Oh Chang-soo joined the group, carrying his own disturbing findings. Admiral, I have been studying human governmental and military structures. They prepared for conquest scenarios decades in advance. Prepared how? They wrote detailed analyses of how conquering species typically behave, what mistakes invaders usually make, how occupied populations can best cooperate with their new rulers. Colonel O showed them military strategy papers. They studied every historical conquest on their planet and developed optimal response protocols. Admiral Kwan stared at the documents. The humans had analyzed their own history of being, conquered and created manuals for how to be conquered effectively. Colonel, are you saying they knew how to surrender properly? Better than that, sir. They knew how to make surrender beneficial for both sides. They prepared materials showing how human knowledge could help their conquerors, how human cooperation could benefit alien goals, and how cultural exchange could strengthen interstellar relationships. Communications specialist on Giwu approached with the most disturbing revelation yet. Admiral, I have been monitoring human communication systems from before our arrival. For over 70 years, they have been broadcasting information about their planet into space. Broadcasting what information? Everything, sir. Radio signals containing human music, mathematical concepts, scientific discoveries, and cultural examples. They were advertising their civilization to anyone who might be listening. Specialists on showed them recordings of human radio telescopes sending signals toward distant stars. Messages explaining human biology, human society, human achievements, and human location. They want it to be found, Admiral Kwan said slowly. Yes, sir. They believed that contact with alien intelligence was inevitable. Instead of hiding, they chose to make themselves as interesting as possible. Dr. Kwan pulled up more files. Admiral, I found their reasoning in these sociological papers. They concluded that any species capable of interstellar travel would be scientifically advanced and intellectually curious. They bet their survival on the assumption that intelligent aliens would value knowledge over conquest. They were correct. They designed their entire approach to first contact around the idea that knowledge would be their greatest defense. Dr. Kwan showed him educational theory papers written by human academics. They believed that making themselves indispensable teachers would protect them better than any weapon. Admiral Kwan walked to the center viewport and looked down at Earth. The blue and green planet that had seemed so vulnerable 3 years ago now appeared completely different. The humans had not been helpless victims waiting for conquest. They had been patient teachers waiting for students. They turned their apparent weakness into strength, he said. Intelligence Officer Zhang nodded. Their obsessive documentation was not just cultural preservation, sir. It was a survival strategy. They made themselves too valuable to destroy and too interesting to abandon, and we fell for it. We all fell for it, sir. The entire galaxy would fall for it. Any intelligent species that encountered humans would become fascinated by their comprehensive knowledge base. Colonel O added his analysis. Sir, the humans studied every possible first contact scenario and chose the optimal strategy for each. 1. If we had arrived as peaceful explorers, they would have greeted us as teachers and guides. If we arrived as conquerors, they would have surrendered while making themselves indispensable. What if we had arrived planning to destroy them completely? They prepared for that too, sir. Colonel O showed him disaster preservation protocols. They created off-world backup archives, underground storage facilities, distributed networks that could survive planetary destruction. Even if we had tried to eliminate them, their knowledge would have survived. Admiral Kwan realized the full scope of human planning. They had not just prepared for alien contact, they had prepared for every possible outcome of alien contact: peaceful trade, cultural exchange, conquest, enslavement, or complete destruction. They had strategies for all scenarios. They outmaneuvered us before we arrived, he said. Dr. Kwan opened one final document. Admiral, this is their ultimate contingency plan. If all else failed, they intended to make their destroyers into their successors. Explain. Any species that eliminated humanity would inherit all human knowledge. The conquerors would become the new guardians of human achievements. Even in death, humans would achieve a form of immortality through their ideas and discoveries. Admiral Kwan understood now why his fleet was trapped. The humans had created a perfect knowledge trap. They made themselves impossible to ignore, impossible to fully understand, and impossible to abandon. Whether they lived or died, their ideas would survive and influence whoever encountered them. "We did not conquer Earth," Admiral Kwan said quietly. "Earth conquered us." 5 years after the invasion, that was supposed to last 37 hours, Admiral Kwan Deho faced the most difficult report of his career. The High Command demanded answers, but the truth was almost impossible to explain. The Velkhari Empire controlled 847 conquered worlds. Earth was supposed to be number 848. Instead, it had become something that had never existed before in galactic history, a planet that conquered its conquerors without firing a shot. Admiral Dr. Park Sun-kyun called. "From her research station, I have completed the comprehensive analysis you requested." Dr. Park had become the fleet's chief human studies specialist over the past 2 years. Her team had grown from 12 researchers to over 3,000 Velkhari scholars working full-time to understand human civilization. What are your conclusions? "Doctor, sir, humans are not just a species that documents extensively. They are a species that learns from documentation. Every piece of preserved knowledge influences how they approach new problems." Dr. Park showed him statistical analyses of human behavior patterns. They use their past to predict their future. They study failures to avoid repeating them. They preserve successes to build upon them. Admiral Kwan studied the data. Human civilizations had lasted longer than most species because they learned from previous civilizations. Human technology advanced faster because they built upon previous discoveries. Human culture remained stable because they understood what had worked before. "Doctor, are you saying that human knowledge preservation is actually an evolutionary advantage?" "Yes, sir. Most species repeat the same mistakes because they forget their past. Humans avoid mistakes because they remember everything." Dr. Park pulled up comparative studies. Their comprehensive documentation system makes them more adaptable than any other species we have encountered. Commander Yuminseok approached with his own troubling report. "Admiral, I need to discuss the current political situation." "Political situation?" "The relationship between human and Velkhari populations, sir. It has changed significantly over the past year." Admiral Kwan frowned. The human population had been fully cooperative since their surrender 5 years ago. Too cooperative, actually. They had volunteered to help Velkhari researchers understand their archives. They had offered translations, explanations, and cultural guidance. Changed how? "The humans are no longer working for us, sir. We are working with them." Commander Minseok showed him daily activity reports. People come to them for help understanding their documents. We ask them questions about their history. We request their assistance with scientific problems. "Admiral?" Kwan reviewed the reports. Velkhari soldiers asking human librarians for research help. Velkhari scientists collaborating with human academics on biological studies. Velkhari cultural analysts seeking human guidance on social patterns. "Commander, are you telling me that our people see humans as colleagues rather than subjects?" "Worse than that, sir. People see humans as teachers." The truth hit Admiral Kwan like a physical blow. His conquest fleet had become students. The humans had transformed their occupiers into researchers who depended on human knowledge and human cooperation. Sir Lieutenant Park Hyun-woo called from his communication. "Station. Urgent message from the High Command." The image of Supreme Admiral Cho Byung-hun appeared on the main screen. His expression was stern and impatient. "Admiral Kwan, the Empire requires an immediate status report. 5 years is an unacceptable timeline for any planetary operation. Sir, the situation has become unprecedented." "Explain." Admiral Kwan took a deep breath. "Supreme Admiral, we did not conquer Earth. Earth transformed us. Our military mission became an academic mission. Our soldiers became scholars. Our conquest became collaboration." "Admiral, you are speaking nonsense." "This are the humans created. A knowledge preservation system so comprehensive and valuable that anyone who encounters it becomes dependent on it. They made themselves indispensable by making themselves irreplaceable teachers." Supreme Admiral Cho leaned forward. "Admiral, are you telling me that your fleet has been seduced by human culture?" "No, sir. We have been educated by human knowledge." Admiral Kwan gestured to his bridge. where Valkyrie officers worked alongside human advisors on various research projects. Our understanding of biology, history, psychology, technology, and social organization has advanced more in 5 years than in the previous century. At what cost? The cost of remembering that we came here to conquer rather than to learn. There was a long silence. Supreme Admiral Cho studied the scene on Admiral Kwan's bridge, Valkyrie, and human researchers working together on projects that would have been impossible for either species alone. Admiral, what do you recommend? Admiral Kwan looked around his bridge at the faces of his officers. They had arrived as conquerors and become scholars. They had planned to destroy human civilization and instead had become its students and protectors. Sir, I recommend we establish the Earth's Cultural Preservation and Research Alliance, a joint Valkyrie human institution dedicated to studying not just Earth's knowledge, but using that knowledge to better understand how civilizations develop throughout the galaxy. You want to make Earth a permanent research station? I want to make Earth the galaxy's premier center of learning. The humans have demonstrated that comprehensive knowledge preservation creates advantages that military conquest cannot match. They have shown us that teaching can be more powerful than fighting. Dr. Park Sun-kyun added her support. Supreme Admiral, human knowledge has already provided solutions to 17 major technological problems the Empire has been struggling with for decades. Their historical analysis has revealed strategic patterns that could revolutionize our approach to planetary governance. Commander Yuminseok stepped forward. Sir, the humans have offered to share their knowledge preservation methods with other species. They want to help the entire galaxy develop better systems for learning from the past. Supreme Admiral Cho considered their proposals. Admiral, you are asking me to transform a military conquest into an educational partnership. Yes, sir, because the humans proved that education is more powerful than conquest. Admiral Kwan pulled up displays showing the advances his fleet had made through human knowledge. They defeated us without violence. They conquered us through curiosity. They made us want to protect them by making us need to learn from them. You believe this approach would work with other species? Sir, any intelligent species would respond the same way we did. The humans have created the most valuable resource in the galaxy, a complete record of how intelligence develops on a planetary scale. Dr. Park added her final argument. Supreme Admiral, the humans have offered to train other species in their prisoners. Documentation methods. They want to help every civilization preserve and learn from their own experiences. Supreme Admiral Cho was quiet for several minutes, studying the reports and data displays. Finally, he spoke. Admiral Kwan, submit a formal proposal for the Earth's Cultural Preservation and Research Alliance. Include detailed analysis of potential benefits for Empire development. Understood, sir? And Admiral ... Yes, sir. Congratulations on achieving the most successful conquest in Velkar history. You conquered a species by allowing them to conquer you. The transmission ended. Admiral Kwan looked around his bridge at the mixture of Valkyrie officers and human advisors who had become his extended crew. Dr. Park, begin preparations for the Alliance proposal. Already started, sir. Humans have been preparing partnership documents for 2 years. They anticipated this outcome. Admiral Kwan smiled. Of course they had. The humans had prepared for every possible ending to their story. Even the ending where their conquerors became their colleagues. He walked to the main viewport and looked. Down at Earth, the blue and green planet that had trapped his fleet with curiosity and knowledge, the world that had won its freedom by making its enemies into friends, the humans had achieved the impossible. They had turned conquest into collaboration, invasion into education, and occupation into partnership. They had proven that the greatest weapon was not force, but fascination. Admiral Kwan realized that his fleet would never leave Earth, not because they were trapped, but because they had found something better than conquest. They had found a home. For learning that would benefit the entire galaxy. The 37-hour conquest had become a permanent discovery that would change how civilizations interacted forever.